I'm joined with Drew Zimmerman from Stallion Uranium here at the Red Cloud Fall Mining Showcase 2024. Drew, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely, great to be here.
So, Drew, the first thing we got to talk about is this big news with Kazatomprom and basically locking up half their supply with China. What's your take on the news?
Yeah, I mean, in my presentation earlier today, I talked about, Kazatomprom was already saying it was going to be harder for them to supply Western nations, that it was going to be easier to sell uranium to China and Russia, and the news yesterday just confirmed exactly what they've been saying. So again, for Western nations, it's just more of a supply issue. More supply is coming offline for the growing demand, and that's the issue that we have. And that, I think, is the opportunity for us in Canada and the Athabasca Basin, especially 15% of the world's supply. But again, as supply gets bifurcated between these geopolitical countries, you're really going to be looking to Canada more and more to supply Western nations with uranium.
So we've got this sort of supply issue that's now happening, especially with the largest producer in the world starting to cut off supply to the West. But at the same time, we've seen this huge shift in sentiment towards nuclear power generation. And just, I think it was earlier this week, Amazon announced a deal with Dominion Energy to fund SMR development. And then we've got Google and Microsoft doing similar things. How much have you noticed the change in nuclear sentiment over the last few years?
Well, I think that's the key. The sentiment has absolutely shifted, pillar to post. And I think the marquee news was Microsoft going out and saying, we're going to turn 3 Mile Island back on. I mean, there is not a nuclear power plant in the United States that has a worse negative connotation around it than 3 Mile Island. That was the one of the 2 reactors that had a meltdown, again, a industrial disaster, but again, nobody hurt, nobody harmed, anything like that. But for Microsoft to say, we need this power, we're going to go back and restart the reactor that was running up until the 90s, and be able to say, we're going to do this because we need that clean energy, and get applauded to do so, I think is just the sort of barometer of how the public perception has changed on uranium. So they got applauded for, taking what was, the dirtiest shirt in the clothes hamper and saying, we're going to clean this, we're going to take it back. And I think that's just, again, the sentiment is fully shifted to back nuclear. Everybody's getting behind it because it is that clean baseload power that we need, and especially that these data centers need. They can't have intermittent power. They need to be on all the time. And you're looking at coal, natural gas, and nuclear. And nuclear is the only one of those that's carbon free.
So let's talk about Stallion Uranium, which is your baby. What's the high-level overview of Stallion Uranium?
For us, we are very focused on the Southwest Basin. So that's where NextGen has their Arrow deposit, Fission has their Triple R deposit. And our thesis was the Southwest is just as endowed as the Eastern Basin. The East has had 50 years of exploration after you had, Key Lake and Rabbit Lake Complex have the mines and mills come in there. That brought in the infrastructure for all the exploration over 50 years. And you've had numerous world-class deposits get found in the decades after that. Cigar Lake, MacArthur River. You've got Denison's, Griffin and Phoenix, Hurricane, Rough Rider. So now we're shifting to the Southwest and saying we're just starting to see that infrastructure come as they're going to develop Triple R and Arrow. And we've built out the largest land package there, stepping into the basin, saying these next world-class deposits we think are going to be found in the Southwest because we have 3,000 square kilometers that we just put the first 3 drill holes in. If this land package was in the East, it would have hundreds of drill holes in it already. So that's the level of sort of the underexplored nature on the Southwest, and that is our opportunity.
Now, something when I think about Athabasca Basin explorers, the thing that I think about is that you've got to go and hit a pretty impressive hole to actually move the dial, because we're talking some pretty high grade projects in the basin. Like, if you just go and find mineralization, I don't know that that's enough to move the dial with the investor community. Perhaps I'm wrong on that, but how do you view it from a sense of, you're an exploration stage company. You're only going to get so many shots at this. How do you make sure that you can kind of reduce that risk for your shareholders when you're going out and trying to, go find that next Arrow deposit or the next 3R project?
Yeah, exactly. So everything we do is trying to increase that probability of success. So we, started really big regional work, and by doing so, we are looking at drilling the 0.001% of our land package. So you're talking about the absolute cream of the crop when we're going after a target, because we had so much land to start with. We don't have to recreate that exploration wheel. We know how these other companies have found their deposits. We're using, since they found McArthur River, technology that's 45 years more advanced than what they had when they found those deposits. So that's working in our favor. And our initial drill program that those 3 holes that we put in the beginning of this year, we hit anomalous radioactivity in all 3 at the unconformity. And most importantly, our final hole, we hit our big graphitic structure. So we're only 13 kilometers away from Shea Creek. It's 100 million pounds in the ground with Uranium Energy Company in Orano. We now know exactly where this structure is. It's the plumbing that runs underneath these uranium deposits in the basin. We know it's a big structure. It was 95 meters wide, so slightly larger than the structure that's underneath the Shea Creek deposit. So we know it can host something that's 100 million pounds plus, and we just have to target it up dip where it meets the unconformity. So we intersected it 120 meters under the unconformity. So for us to be able to follow that and say, we now know exactly where we want to target. We know that we're seeing all the same features around this target area that they were seeing at Shea Creek, around the Shea Creek deposit. That just, again, continues to increase our confidence in probability of having a discovery hole. And like you say, these deposits can be so rich and so big. F3 was the most recent discovery right next to this project. We share a project boundary with them. They went from 25 million market cap to 150 million on one discovery hole. That is the value of finding these deposits. And again, finding deposits that we're looking for are absolutely huge. They're billion-dollar deposits. I mean, when Arrow was discovered 10 years ago, NextGen was a little exploration company. They're now $6 billion. It's incredible.
We were chatting with Corey from Alaska yesterday, and just looking at that hole, I think it was 15% over 10 meters is just like, okay, well, now you're looking at it even at, I don't know what the market cap's, what's it, like $150 million. You're looking at it going, oh, this could be $1 billion market cap here if they can follow this up. And I suppose that's what you guys are here for.
100%. I mean, the West McArthur project with Corey and Alaska has been great. And again, it's just further proof of what can happen when you have these discovery holes. And now they're following that up with even more really good drill holes as they're building out the potential size of that pod of uranium. And that's what we're all in this for, because again, we talked about supply being curtailed from Kazatomprom. We talked about the growing demand. We need these deposits because, I mean, we just said, NextGen found Arrow 10 years ago. We need to find them now if they're going to be able to supply a nuclear renaissance that's in full swing to be able to go into production a decade from now. So again, that's why companies at our end of the pipeline of uranium exploration need to be doing the work that we're doing, and why it's so exciting to be able to be in this sector. Not only is it incredibly rewarding, we think it's something that has to be done.
Okay, so Drew, last question for you. If I'm an investor watching the story and I'm interested, and I go, okay, Drew's telling a compelling case here for Stallion Uranium, what am I looking out for over the next year?
Yeah, I mean, we continue to upgrade other targets. So, we've got 9 Tier 1 targets on our project. Appaloosa is our most advanced. We're going to be drill testing that again in the new year. We think we have near-term discovery potential. I mean, that's only a few months away. It's going to be here before we know it. We're continuing to do other work, so we're flying a HeliSAM survey now over our fishhook target. So again, having other targets coming up that are going to be drill ready in our pipeline. And importantly for us, we've got a unique optionality play in Stallion as well. We just signed a binding LOI on our gold and antimony project in central Idaho. We're going to get up to $2.2 million in cash and shares from a private company that's going to do $5 million worth of work over the next 4 years to earn into 80% of that project. So not only are we going to be getting paid over the next 4 years, but we're going to have a 20% carried interest in that project. It's right next to Perpetua Resources. They're going to be the only domestic source of antimony in the United States, a very critical mineral. They've had $60 million of Department of Defense grants. So again, that's a great project that is really seeing a lot of catalysts happen in its district, and that's sort of a free call option within Stallion as we focus all of our time, energy, and capital in the Athabasca Basin working to make a discovery, but again, sort of an extra call option.
How did you guys end up with the antimony project? Was this originally in the shell? Is that?
Yeah, as we came public 3.5 years ago, as we started Stallion, that was our initial asset, was that gold antimony project in central Idaho. And then 2 years ago, when uranium was starting to move, at $40, $45, we made the jump into the uranium space in a very big way, and that's sort of been our focus while keeping the gold and antimony project in our back pocket.
Did you have a crystal ball to know that antimony was going to become a hot thing at some point, or was it just like some byproduct and you were focused on the gold?
No, I mean, our project had historical antimony production on it during World War II. They mined 60 rail cars off it. So, we were talking about antimony for the last 3.5 years before anybody knew what antimony was.
Okay.
So it's been one of those things that's, worked out very, very well for us that, it's become such a topical thing, and to have that in the United States where they need that domestic production. But it's funny how some of those things work out. So you got to be good to be lucky sometimes in that sense.
Well, Drew, thanks for hopping on here, and hopefully you'll come back on here in the future and chat with us as your results continue to come in.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.